It is the third model of the Neon Genesis Evangelion collaboration of 2023. It is EVM02 Unit 2, with the kit of Precognition, Cross Shock, Disaster, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Through Fight, which grants a chance for melee skills to ignore defense when attacking. Now, as a third model of an already powerful and well iconic series, it only makes sense that the equally as iconic model 02 is just as nasty as 01, while not only that either, packing not one, but two brand new skills to be introduced to the game going forward, each as nasty as the one before it. Precognition is a support-based skill that essentially is Hypercrept 2.0, where Hypercrept would grant you two random buffs to the team. Precognition will of course grant you 3 across the board to all allies and to self, of course at the cost that the buffs will have a much lower duration and uptime before they expire. Cross Shock is a brand new melee skill being introduced to the game, which is being introduced as a scattered AoE, meaning it will damage one part normally and then 2 others at random at 1/3 damage each. The extra information that was given on Cross Shock as well mentions that it has passive defense ignore similar to Pile or Railgun, but it did also make a very special note of mentioning in particular that Cross Shock has also a naturally high passive crit chance, which means that despite you dealing scattered damage to 1 to 3 separate parts, you are going to be having a very high likelihood of staggering the opponent with a critical hit when making that blow. The cost, they did also mention that you cannot dodge or defend while you are in your cooldown, as fully expected of a rather powerful skill. Left Arm of Disaster is another brand new skill being introduced to the game, and wasn't able to make a whole lot out on this one, but what I could get out of it, it's essentially a variant of Melee's Destroy, but of course with pierce damage tossed in as a natural and passive innate ability. So it will be very interesting to see if this really does pose as a new dangerous skill or variant of Destroy, or if it will stand out on its own as a completely new and very dangerous skill to be used across the board. Biped Legs means that Unit 2 will have very solid coverage across all terrains, arguably one of the best overall when it comes to balance and coverage, of course with when everyone having S on Cyber. But the leg ability of Through Fight really ties together the synergy of what Unit 2 brings to the table. And with Through Fight granting the chance for melee skills to ignore defense when attacking, this also means that Unit 2 has the ability to passively ignore shields and bypass them. So this means anyone that uses Guard, Guard 500, Perfect Guard, or so on, when fully capped out, Unit 2 has up to a 50% chance to completely ignore the person using the shield and go straight for who they're targeting right to the throat, which makes Unit 2 even more of a threat on the field than originally given credit for. Stat-wise too, Unit 2 is packing some very nice specs across the board too, at about 4150 HP for the head, about 3900 HP per arm, and legs at about 3650, packing a very solid HP pool as well. Leg mobility at 904 is very good, a little bit higher than Unit 01, so definitely built with agility in mind. And on the topic of agility, Unit 2's legs are packing an evade of 1437, which means it will have a very good time dodging or grazing a lot of incoming blows that maybe won't have as very high of a success rate. And thus which also bypassing a lot of ailments that the enemy may choose to use against them. A melee resist of 1033 and a shoot resist of 1335 means that Unit 2 can hold their own moderately well against most forms of combat, though with a mastery against incoming pot shots from long-range fighters. Base power, of course, is really good too between the two new skills as well. With Cross Shock being an AoE, it will have a higher base damage compared to a standard blow because it is spread loading the damage. But of course, with it having a high crit chance, these are only the base numbers as a reminder. That being said, with all this mentioned, as a pure set score, I do have to rate Unit 02 a very solid 8.5 out of 10. In some cases, I could even say even a 9, because it has very good synergy between the parts. Precognition grants 3 random buffs to itself and all allies. This can be anything from fight boost, charge to a mobile boost, to guard boost, and so on, which does not hinder or step in the way of what Cross Shock or Disaster offer. And with both arms being completely different skills, you honestly have creamed up the crop when it comes to how you want to play using Unit 02. And through fight with the leg ability is just icing on the cake, as it already ties together this very aggressive package that Unit 2 comes packing with. As mixed parts, I do easily have to grade Unit 02 a very solid and equal 8.5 out of 10. Also, arguments can be made for 9. Precognition, again, for support skills, you really can't ever go wrong with using them. Cross Shock and Disaster showing to be very nasty skills across the board, especially for melee fighters. And once again, like with Units 0 and 01, very solid legs across the board too. So even if you go for the full set, or even as mixed parts and choose to spread load them out, this is a model you really can't ever go wrong with using, whether that's designed as your aggressive melee fighter, or even spread loading the parts across your melee nukers to make better use of.